Hey, what's up? It's Matt, and take a listen to this clip from the Imagine Dragons song Polaroid.
How did it come to this song? Love is a Polaroid, letter in fiction.
It's nice, but we get something interesting when it's played backwards. Here, take a listen. Wait, didn't you hear it? Let me put the words up and play it again. You hear it now? That's weird, right? Well, the weirder thing is, why didn't you hear this until I put the words there? Does this backwards message actually exist, or is this some sort of mental trick? There are tons of songs with backwards messages, but if you listen to them before looking at the lyrics, like we did, they're unintelligible. You can try this with other songs too. Jeff Milner's Backmasking collection has a lot of good examples of this. Without these written lyrics, backwards songs are just gibberish. But when we have lyrics, when we know what we're looking for, we automatically create an expectation for how the song should sound to us. And as we listen to it, we interpret those noises in a way that supports that expectation, and we hear those lyrics. This is the expectancy effect, that when we have expectations for some result, we are much more likely to perceive that result, even if it doesn't exist. But wait, isn't it possible these bands just put these backwards messages in their songs all along, and this expectation thing is just BS? Well, probably not. Some artists have intentionally put backwards messages in their music, but the majority have not. Most of this is just pure expectation. People wanted to find something, so they did. I mean, if you spend some time looking, there are backwards messages in everything. Remember the song Polaroid I showed you in the beginning? That's not from a YouTube video or anything. One night, my brother and I just sat down and tried to think up a backwards message for the purpose of this video. So it seems like expectations do, in fact, influence our perception of reality. And in 1973, psychologist David Rosenhan conducted a fascinating experiment illustrating this. Rosenhan wondered if psychiatrists and psychiatric wards could reliably tell the difference between sane and insane persons. So he and 7 others pretended to be hearing voices and were actually admitted into real psychiatric wards across the United States. Now after this they began behaving normally again, but it still took them a while to get out, an average of 19 days. And none of them were released as totally normal, but instead with the label schizophrenia in remission. This first part is really interesting and reveals some kind of shocking things about the state of psychiatric wards in 1973. But we're not going to talk about it too much right now, because we're interested in what happened after this experiment. One hospital heard about this and said, "Oh, there's no way you could trick our staff." So Rosenhan said, "Okay, in the next 3 months I will send over 1 or more pseudo-patients, and if you can tell them apart, then you're right, I guess we didn't trick you." Of the 193 patients who came in during this period, 41 were alleged with high confidence to be a pseudo-patient by at least 1 staff member, and 19 were suspected by at least a staff member and a psychiatrist. So how many pseudo-patients did Rosenhan send? 0. All of the people the staff and psychiatrists identified were, presumably, not faking at all. But when Rosenhan said he would send in pseudo-patients, this created the expectation in the mind of the staff and the psychiatrists, and they then interpreted behavior to fit their expectations. They saw what they wanted to see. Okay, up until now, we've been talking about how the expectancy effect can influence our perception of things, but there's another component of this we haven't yet addressed. Sometimes we also experience real behavioral change as a result of our expectations. Let me share the perfect example of this. A placebo. A placebo is the expectancy effect. You take a pill or injection that does absolutely nothing, but because you expect it to work, your body acts like it's real medicine, and you can get better. Quick side note, placebos are not 100% effective, and it's hard to tell how effective they actually are, but they definitely have helped some people. Now, there's one more example I want to share with you to really hammer home the power of this behavioral change and the expectancy effect in general. In 1965, psychologists Robert Rosenthal and Lenore Jacobson gave an intelligence test to a public elementary school in the beginning of its school year. After that test, Rosenthal and Jacobson used a special method to identify about 20% of the kids who were expected to grow much more than all the other kids, and they shared that information with the teachers. 8 months later, at the end of the school year, Rosenthal and Jacobson come back and give that same intelligence test to measure how everyone's grown. All the students have grown. Naturally, they were in school for a year, but the students they identified, that 20%, grew significantly more than the other students. Maybe you've already guessed this from the direction of the overall video, but here's the thing. Rosenthal and Jacobson didn't have a special method. That 20% of students they identified as high growers, totally random. But they still grew more than everyone else. You see, when teachers were told that some students were expected to grow rapidly, their expectations for those students changed, and without realizing it themselves, they behaved differently. They had better moods around those students. They paid closer attention. If they would raise their hand, they would give them more time to respond. And all of this actually helped those students do better than others. This expectation effect is powerful and crazy, and there are so many more applications for it than just the 4 we have mentioned. But even these 4, I think, are pretty big. It can cause us to interpret or hear things that aren't there. It can cause us to misdiagnose and misunderstand someone's condition. It can help people get better when they maybe technically shouldn't, and it can change the way we treat people without us even realizing it. Maybe Marshall McLuhan says it the best. I wouldn't have seen it if I hadn't believed it. Brother, I'll see ya on weekday. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you liked this, there are 2 other great videos I recommend watching. CGP Gray's video on Placebos and Vsauce's Spooky Coincidences. So I'm putting them in the cards thing, but because this is YouTube and that feature will probably go away at some point, I'm also putting them in the description. Also, with my YouTube channel personally, there are a lot of interesting things I'm planning on doing, so if you want to participate in at all, check the subreddit r/conjecturevlog. And finally, the obligatory ending: like it, thumbs up it, share it. Yeah. See ya.